Hey, my name is Pat Casey with Peak State Fit in Salt Lake City, Utah. Today, I'm going to take you through a little series for tight hips, hip flexors in particular, but this will work a little bit of rotation and hopefully get you feeling a little bit better. If you like this and you are just starting out with some of these movements, one might be enough, one round. If you feel so inclined, you can add in another. And I think taking into your routine any of these movements that feel particularly good and others that might feel particularly challenging, make a little mental note and return to them on a later date after you've kind of familiarized yourself with some of these ranges of motion. So we're going to start out as I'm kneeling. We're going to just extend one leg out to the side. I have a balance pad for my knee that's on the ground just so that I'm avoiding getting any kind of pressure in the knee. And we're just going to hinge the hips back. And so you'll feel a little bit of a stretch and in that glute ham interface. You should not be feeling any stretch in your low back. So most of what the movement requires is just loading that glute unilaterally. So we're going to go about 10. Nice big breath. Really think about getting that hip to move back. And then we're also going to be loading a little bit into this adductor on our leg that's extended out to the side. So always moving with breath. Every time we come up, think big body. We're just trying to incorporate as much breath work and intent to each time we move. We're starting out with just a little bit of mobility. So this should be gentle. It shouldn't be an aggressive stretch. After 10, we're going to bring that foot up into a knee flexed position, and we're just going to move into that leading leg. So kind of mobilize that adductor on your right leg, and then get a little bit creative here. You can change the angle of your pelvis by kind of rotating into it a little differently. You have a little bit of freedom here. Some people are a little more tight in their adductors, medial muscles. Some people are a little bit tighter in their lateral muscles, their abductors. So just find what feels good here. And we'll switch sides. Let's slide this pad over. These balance pads are fantastic. You can add them into any kind of single leg or double leg exercise for instability. I particularly like it for this type of mobility work where I'm not placing any kind of pressure on my joints. You'll find that one side is tighter than the other. Usually if, say, you lead with your right leg, you might have a little bit more anterior hip tension. This left side for me, I certainly am able to load it a little more accurately and doesn't compensate quite as much, so I don't experience as many issues on this side. But it is challenging in a different way. Just did a gym workout this morning, so thinking through some of those patterns I was performing in the gym and how those might be fatiguing. It's always a nice way to honor your body, thinking about what muscles you worked, what muscles you continuously work, and how we can manipulate them and get them moving better. Good. Come up. A little bit of adductor mobility, just not crazy deep in any of these movements, but should feel like a nice gentle stretch. And we're just adding these dynamics to improve elasticity, to get the fascia moving, get some blood flow to the areas that we're going to be working today. So next we're going to add in a little bit of controlled movement of the hips. So we'll set up for this just like we're going to do a bird dog or cat cow. So just hands under shoulders, knees under hips, nice stable position. The goal here is to avoid any compensation at your lumbar spine. So the best way to avoid doing this is prompting with your breath and bracing starting from your lats and your upper back, and making sure that you're not going through this movement and doing this. We want to avoid any kind of anterior tilt of the pelvis. We're not trying to create extension in the low back. We're trying to create a nice neutral spinal position so that we can lock in the hips and really work the area of motion that we're trying to incorporate and encourage. So we'll go back and external, external, rotate, and bring back to center. So we'll do 5 or 6 per side. The goal is not to go through these quickly. The goal is to go through these with quality. So make sure that no matter what pace you're going through these, you're focused on maintaining good spinal neutrality and position and getting as thorough of a range of motion with the hip joint as you can. It will get challenging, which is why we're only going to do 5 or 6 per side. Now, the focus of this is absolutely controlled articular rotation. So if you want to look up more of this type of movement, they're commonly referred to as CARS, C-A-R-S. And they do get challenging over time. Very good. All right, so we'll just switch sides. Go with our left. Again, one side is generally going to be a little more tricky or challenging. You might even find that you shift your weight. I know that I get a little bit more tension, carry a little more tension in this left side because it does do a little bit more work. Not to say that that's problematic, but your stronger side might have more bound up fascia, might be a little bit more muscular, and also might just be accustomed to working within a more fixed range. So think about that as you're going through these. It's going to be a little bit of a difference from right to left. Most people will have that. Totally normal. And I just even caught myself. If you noticed, when I started shifting my weight, I was trying to encourage as much range of motion as I was getting on my right. Now, don't do that. Just allow yourself to move through a controlled range without compromising that spinal stability. You sort of lose the purpose of the exercise once you start compensating and moving all over the place. Excellent. So our next one we're going to do is a little bit more activation. This one can be a little bit of a challenge for some, and this is one that particularly can challenge your knees. So if you have any pre-existing issues with your knees, particularly within lateral ligaments or even injuries with your ACL, or you just know that your knees can be a little bit finicky, you might modify this just by maintaining this position. And that's plenty of movement. One aspect to the 90-90 pose that I really enjoy and add in on a regular basis, especially after doing some myofascia work and foam rolling and mobility, is I'll do some contract and release where I'm putting a little bit of pressure into this knee for about 15 to 20 seconds, and then trying to just work some external rotation. You can do the same thing on the opposing leg, the one that's in internal rotations, doing a little bit of pressure, activate the adductors, activate your TFL, and then do a little bit of rotation this way. So if you choose to do that route, that's totally cool. There's a bunch of great videos on that on YouTube as well if you want to explore those movements further, if those are feeling good for you. So we're going to do 5 or 6 of these, just where we're engaging the core, lean the torso forward, and we're going to come up. I'm actually going to shorten my stance a little bit. This knee should stay planted. We're just going to come down and back up. So a lot of pressure is going into that forward-facing knee. We're just working that hip in external rotation. Controlled all the way up. Hips come into extension. Slow on the way back down. Let's go. One more. Excellent. And back down. Ooh, feeling that session this morning, and it's so good. You can use your balance pad for this. I just find that it tends to be a little bit more challenging just because there's a lot more movement. You can't really anchor into anything. Again, nice tall position, starting with activating our core. And up and back down. Good. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Beautiful. All right. Again, if if you're loving this stuff, you want to add in one more round, you're happy. It's totally up to you how many reps you do. Some people are really familiar with that movement, especially people that do stuff on the floor like jiu-jitsu and all that different martial arts application. They do a lot of that kind of stuff because getting up from that position when you're fighting, I guess, is important, not fighting. So next we're going to do a little bit of isometric for the quad. And so this is really important, engaging this line of fascia, especially for cyclists and runners. We get very dominant through our quads, through this anterior fascia, and, especially with just high repetition sagittal plane movements. So we're going to add in a little bit of contraction, but we're going to add in a little bit of functional range with it. So we're just going to use one kettlebell today. I do have both with me. So we're going to finish with a little bit of standing activation. But the starting point for this, and the most important piece of this and the next movement, will be maximal quad contraction. So you'll notice as I engage my quad and I'm standing tall, my heel is almost just barely drifting off the mat. That's the piece you want to maintain. As soon as you lose that, we've lost the quality. So we're going to go for 5 per side. Again, happy to add in more, and if you want to go through this again, but for quality, 5 is about as much as I can probably do, especially since this is a very neuro-oriented pattern. So I actually give myself a little bit of a break here too. Move my kettlebell this way. You can use a yoga block. You can really use anything, or you can just go through space, but we're just going to lift. Notice the challenge of this movement is highly reliant on the stiffness of my axial skeleton, the proximal stability that I'm providing my distal extremities. So maintaining this connection, this isometric here, is crucial to stabilizing your core and getting as much quality out of this portion of the movement as possible. So we're going to do the other side, but I encourage you to explore this. I think a lot of us believe we're very strong in our quadriceps, which is true, but they don't often get isolated in the sense of they're not getting all their team to work along with them. So the more accurately you can engage and activate your quads, the better they will work with the rest of the team. So, I'm not all about compartmentalized movements, but especially when it comes to these guys, it's pretty huge. So let's go 5 each direction, 10 in total. Woo! Those are hard and really beneficial. We're going to continue along that line. It's not going to be quite as maximal in terms of activation and movement, but it will be controlled movement within a very controlled range of motion. So we're not going to add any rotation this time, but we are going to lay on our backs. The heel should be maybe about 10 inches from your butt. Not as important to maintain any kind of isometric here because we have the ground to stabilize. One thing I do like to do is incorporate a little foundation training, close the kinetic chain by fingertips to the mat along the hips. Now we're just going to perform the same amount of contraction, so pretty darn hard, 90 to 100% contraction of that quad. And we're just going to maintain good stability of the hips on the mat. Inhale on the way up, exhale on the way down. One component that is different from FT, we're going to be focused on belly breath as opposed to expansive rib cage breath. So leave your ribs out of the equation for this. And we're going to just do 6 per side. Again, this is just getting things turned on and helping the neuromuscular patterns that are creating the tension at the insertional points up at the tops of the hips kind of relax a little bit. So close the kinetic chain. Every time you perform this, I want you to feel like the belly fills with air. Go to about here. I'm not feeling any stretch of the posterior chain. The backside of my leg is totally relaxed. All the activations in the front. And then when you exhale, allow that belly to fall. Maintain that contraction. Don't lose it. Good. 6 per side. Those will feel fatiguing. If you do more than that and you are performing a maximal contraction, it's very likely that your quad might cramp. So just be aware of that. The benefit is not high repetition. The benefit is quality. Again, engage that left, dorsiflex the foot, sort of left that cue out from the last one, but we're really engaging throughout that whole line of fascia. All through the nose if possible. Last one, controlled all the way down. Excellent. All right. So those are high quality. And again, we've worked the quads plenty. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of integration by stabilizing with the core. We stand on one foot. We're going to add a little bit of weight so that we're incorporating some abdominal activity. So this is going to be the last in the round. Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to go through this together. And I'm actually going to go with the lighter kettlebell today. Mostly, again, focused on quality. So the goal here, we're just going to extend this arm overhead. Make sure you're starting out with good posture, chin back, back neck is long, shoulders are drawn down and away from the ears, and we're loading our lats. Okay, so our lats and our transverse abdominis should be engaged. Now on that same side, that unilateral side, take a nice big breath. And we're just going to hold here for about 15 seconds. So this is challenging, obviously, our balance, but also we're activating this line of fascia inflection this time and adding in a little bit of core stability. 2, 1. Bring it down. Lower the weight responsibly. Switch hands. Find your posture. Chin back, back neck is long, so we're nice and tall. Shoulders drawn away from the ears. Press the weight up. If you need to hoist it, that's totally fine. Just make sure that you're maintaining this good spinal alignment, allowing that shoulder to be accurately represented. We're loading the lat, loading the core. So we're not squeezing our glutes here. Everything should be fairly centered around our pubic symphysis. And then we're going to bring the left up. Dorsiflex the foot, really engage that hip flexor. ...10 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Bring the foot down, lower the weight. Excellent. Now I encourage you to add in a few more sets of those. The video just tends to run a little long when we add in all these rounds. So if you want to do maybe 2 more reps per side, and then if you want to get really creative, you can add in a little bit more activation. If you pick up 2 kettlebells, add in a little bit of marching, just to add in some dynamic movement, integrate both sides contralaterally, and be able to kind of explore, start moving a little bit more quality oriented about your hips. Hope you enjoyed it. Cheers.